Thank you so much for joining us, Mubarak. We are truly honored to have you here today. Are you ready to start with the questions?
Pleasure is mine. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Mubarak, could you tell us about your childhood and youth? What kind of family and religious environment did you grow up in?
Mm, Thank you for having me here. I grew up in northern Nigeria, which is a conservative region. I was born in Kano State, which is in the north. We're just on the southern edges of the Sahara Desert, what you would call the Sahel region, which is also now currently the most dangerous region in the world,
Mm,
especially if you consider Afghanistan used to be very dangerous, but we are more in a more dangerous peril than Afghanistan. And I
mm,
think I fear that it would get worse. So I grew up in that kind of an environment where there is no penetration. It's landlocked. We're
mm,
only lucky that we're connected to Nigeria, and so we get the resources from the south and the access to the sea through the whole country. But culturally, we're isolated. I think we are frozen for centuries, if not for millennia. So
oh,
this is an environment that is far, far maybe disconnected with the world, disconnected with the reality. The culture is conservative, sometimes delusional. I believe
mm,
it's even to a point of trance. We are in a trance. We don't value life. We think the life hereafter is better than the life we have.
mm,
And also, if you are going by statistics, we are the poverty capital of the world for decades until we were recognized, I think, about 7, 8 years ago, but it used to be longer than that. Mm, I think also with regards to human rights and freedoms, you could compare us to Somalia
mm,
or Afghanistan, maybe. But there are times that we could just maybe count on our luck because we belong to a federal capital, a federal system in Africa, which is in a way at least giving us the sense of semblance. So we are not just the poverty capital. We have the highest birth rate, I think 6 to 7 children per
mm,
woman, and the lowest education rate, especially for the woman. We also stand to be, I think, the country with the highest number of out of school children. So I was very lucky, exceptionally lucky to be educated. The people I grew up with, the kids we grew up together with, have never had it so good. So they are still down there in the poverty and in the uneducated state, because if you start with education and depended on the government education, you can't even penetrate anything. You can't speak English. Most of me, this my thought and my education is self-taught. It's not because I went to school. It's because I was curious enough to educate
mm,
myself. You learn English by yourself, and also you have to maybe develop yourself. To an extent, you could say Nigeria is maybe 50% educated, 50% not educated, but the southern parts of the country is almost 70, 80% educated, while the
mm,
north maybe just 20, 25, 30% educated. But by education also, it doesn't mean quality education. It means you attended school, but that not really having the education in mind. You may be there, but I think of the 100 and maybe 50 million northern Nigerians, I could tell you less than 2 million, 3 million could speak English, and maybe less than 20 million actually have attended school or have a school certificate to the 18 age level.
mm,
So also we have a system called the Almajiri system. Maybe you must have read about it. It's a system that inculcates children into the Quranic madrasa system
mm,
forever.
mhm,
So they're not supposed to leave. This is part of my work for decades, to try and see as much as I can to get them into the system, because this is what feeds Boko Haram, this is what feeds jihadism, this is what feeds terrorism. And even the British that came did not interfere with the northern region because they felt it's a concentration of maybe boiling point and more sensibilities they could count. So they just let the region be. So they governed, but they couldn't penetrate. They governed via indirect contact with the people and the culture through the heads of the communities they met, which are the traditional rulers. They came in the 1903 exactly, but they found a system, a caliphate system, a century-old caliphate system, which they did not want to disturb. So they just decapitated the head and incorporated those that succeeded them from the same royal families, and that's all. They related with the royal family, and that's how they got to govern for 6 decades, and then they left. So immediately they left, as the region wanted to go back to the caliphate system, which is why you have the jihadism rearing its head here and there all around. But personally, I think I got lucky by the education and I developed myself. And I questioned my system, the system that I grew up in. I was never comfortable with it. And it landed me in so much trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. So, were you a devout believer at the beginning as a young man? How was religion lived within your family as well and your community?
Yes. The communities, as I told you, is ultra conservative. Uh,
Mm.
so even if the family is liberal, you have to cope with the community. But I
Yeah.
wasn't very lucky because my family is very religious. We have a heritage and history of religious affinity. We are descendants of clerics and jihadists. So we thought
Mm.
maybe uh, this is our heritage. Because if you're a son of a farmer, you become a farmer. If you're a son of a cleric, you become a cleric. So most of those times, I had no childhood I could call, or maybe a few occasions that I could say I'm free to do whatever a child is supposed to do. But other times you are in a madrasa, you are in a system just to study the Quran, to study the Hadith, to study all those religious books. So most of your time from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. is dedicated to studies. If you take out only the maybe 8 to 2 p.m. Western education, that's all. All the rest goes to madrasa education, be it privately at home or in the mosque or in the madrasa where you have to walk to. But also, you don't even need this system to be Islamic because the culture is Islamic. It's expected to be Islamic. Even Christians or non affiliated Muslims, okay, non affiliated traditional worshippers have to
Mm.
assimilate to the culture. So a Christian time to time may have to veil up to, feel confident or feel accepted by the community. And parents also try to name their children in the culture just so that the children will not be isolated or pressured or discriminated against. So that's how it has been. Uh, in fact, while I was growing up, I thought I would be a cleric or maybe jihadist, someone that works for the religion, whether it's in the field of combat or in the maybe clerical aspect of it, especially with maybe preaching, proselytizing, converting people, debating other religions. To some extent, I think I only got lucky because this education led me to rational thinking. Otherwise, I would have ended up a jihadi.
Wow. At a certain point, something began to crack in your life. You started to question yourself, perhaps no longer recognizing yourself in the religion you had grown up in. When did the first doubt arise?
Growing up, I think I'm not the only one. Everyone growing up in a system gets at some point to question whatever he or she is practicing. So you always have those doubts, you have those questions, but you would always be cautioned that maybe it's not in your best interest to know, or it's not Islamic to question or to ask or to doubt or to express maybe discontent. So I think I had those doubts, but because also I was very good with the Western education, which most people lack because we have this system of these two tiering systems where this is most families would prefer to just go to the Islamic system without bothering to attend the other system, while other families will go for the education, which is the very rare families that would go for the education, and the children of the elite, they don't bother about this Islamic system. But my family hoped that maybe education as well as Islamism would be better for the future world, especially for combatants or for people that are supposed to be protectors of the faith. So I was both involved in these two. Uh, so I got to compare to maybe, for example, in the morning, I get to read the Quran and know that the planet, the world has 7 layers up and 7 layers below, where hellfire is on the seventh layer, while on the 7 layers above, your God is there sitting down, listening to prayers and waiting for, looking at you for you to make mistakes and punish you. So you already had that, and you have the education where you are told this is how this works, this is how this came about. And if you could understand it, you would easily make out the two, which is right, which is wrong. This one, you get flogging, you are coerced, you are blackmailed, you are scared, while this one is just about explaining how things work, and it doesn't have the pressure. The pressure may just be by maybe passing your exams, but not because you have to believe it, because you have to swallow it. So these are the questions I
Mm.
always had, and I think even in my toddler years, I have questions, and I asked questions. I never kept quiet. But growing up in my teenage years, I think I got bolder and went to do my own researches and here and there. By the time I'm in my late teens, I'm already sure that it doesn't make sense. But in my early 20s, I grew the confidence to realize I can't be religious. But I kept it for, I think, half a decade before I could tell my family about it.
Yes. But I know there was a specific episode that you mentioned in another interview that led you to break away from religion once for all. Could you tell us what happened that day?
So I was just swinging here and there, skeptic here, agnostic here, trying to just cope with the system. But I was not really practicing, just faking for the world, giving a facade that you are this person, but while you are not. But over the years, Boko Haram came, attacks came, killings came, and I tried to argue with friends and family that this is actually the religion killing people because I know the religion better than most of them, and people were either scared or hypocritical or just too dumb to see it. I think I already knew that I could be in trouble, but I tried to keep it as maybe as private as I can, only sharing with a few people. Then I now saw a video where the Boko Haram captured a young girl, maybe in her teenage years or in her 20s, and just took her into a home and used a knife, kitchen knife, to behead that woman right on live on that video, speaking the Hausa language, where it dressed us. Normal, typical northern Nigerian will dress. And I think that broke the whole, whatever diplomacy I ever had, whatever maybe cool I felt about maybe coping, and it broke the camel's back. And so immediately I saw that video after the whole trauma thing. I never looked back, and that was the moment. That was 2013.
Wow. But were you never afraid that speaking so openly against religion could cost even your life?
Those earlier years, yes. Those earlier years, yes. I was always scared. That's why I could keep up with friends and family.
Mm.
It's not just even about maybe losing your life. It starts with losing maybe family contact, maybe support when you are a student. Maybe friends would ostracize you because society will boycott you. You may never get a job. You will never be able to marry even the love of your life because there is a regulation where only a Muslim is allowed to marry a Muslim woman. So you have all those factors that you are considering. But then the ultimate one is the death penalty when you leave the religion. So it was there. But I think with that video and with the killings of Boko Haram, abductions and selling people into slavery, I was just done. I don't care whether I lived or died. In fact, I have already concluded I'll die in my 20s. Those were the times that I was really ready to die, but I had to say it out. So that's the beginning of the trouble in 2012, 13, 14. That's when the world knew about me.
Can you tell us how did your public commitment to freedom of thought and religion begin?
Okay. I think it started because I thought I was the only one initially. You'd think that you can't really, no one can really know these things. And there was no internet when I started. So I believed maybe the world is half Christian, maybe quarter Hindu here, China communist, and then Muslims. So I thought I have this belief. I already dismissed those other ideologies that they don't fit my reality, but I also dismissed the Islamic religion, and so I felt I'm the only one with this kind of thought. Maybe here and there you'd hear about free thinkers, but you're afraid what maybe you're also a free thinker because it's a very big tag to call you an atheist or a free thinker. So I really wanted to dissociate from that. So I felt I'm alone, and whatever I felt committed to was just freedom to express yourself or freedom to leave your religion, which is very big issue. Because even the British, as I told you, when they came, they wouldn't interfere with our cultural heritage. And so when people started converting from the traditional people converting into the Christian religion, they were welcomed by the British. But when the Muslim community now started converting to Christianity, there were big upheavals that the British realized they could face a revolt. So they made a law. They made the blasphemy law, they made the apostasy law, so that no one would leave the religion of Islam. So the British mandated that. And so we are frozen in that system. We couldn't do anything. So now it's unheard of. Even if you're a free thinker, you could just call yourself a free thinker, but without actually admitting that you have left the religion, because the Sharia law is there. Even if the Sharia law is not enacted nationwide, but then you have the culture there, the policemen, the police, Sharia police, and also the traditional federal police, which is, and also you have the vigilante, which is just the mob, people around, they would want to kill you.
Yes.
So you know these things, and you still want to do it, then you are okay. So now I thought I was the only one. When I realized I'm not the only one, after they committed me to a psychiatric hospital and I came out, then people started reaching out to me that really I'm like this, I'm like this. Then I realized I'm not the only one. Then I said, why can't we form our own communities? Because for 2 years, we have already lost the, we've already lost that community. My people have disowned me. They've stopped talking to me. My father has halted the master's program to the UK I was supposed to attend and cut all the ties and whatever stipend I was receiving from home. And friends actually had a meeting to isolate me, that I'm no longer invited to meetings, to gatherings, and to maybe festivities. So I was just an island. So I had to commit to this new community that we are forming. And we started with meeting individuals, and then we formed our own groups. Then we found like minds in the south of the country, and we registered as a humanist organization, as well as other smaller organizations around states. And sometimes we have our own platforms, maybe online, sometimes just physical meetings in some houses where it's just private, maybe safe houses, we could call it now. So we started like that. So we never thought we had to maybe fight the government, because we never thought the government would be against you officially, systematically. We thought the only trouble would be the culture. So we tried as much as we can to keep ourselves safe from the culture and the exposure to the people there, and the Sharia especially, because I immediately became an IDP, internally displaced person. I was
Of
roaming
course.
from state to state, yeah, just hoping I could find a place to stay or maybe a food to eat here and there. It went on for years like that until until the federal government decided to pick me up from where I was staying and take me back home to the north for actual maybe trial. Initially, it wasn't a trial, it's just an abduction, cultural abduction, just so that I could convert to Islam and stop embarrassing the family or embarrassing the culture to the outside world. And that's how it began. And that was where how I ended up in jail for 4.5 years.
Yes. I would like to go back for a moment to your confinement to the psychiatry hospital because of your atheism. Can you tell us what happened to you in that hospital, what you experienced in those days?
Yeah, it was the most traumatic experience yet. That was 2014. I never expected it because I was very confident. It's just like the way I am now, living at home with family, with parents. I know I'm in trouble, but I don't know the extent of trouble. And the region has a private prison system that they could subject you to. But I felt maybe I'm educated enough to know that I can't be put in a private cell where they could just call on maybe a cleric and you'd be taken in shackles and you'll be dumped in you could use Google to just Google Nigeria torture centers or Northern Nigeria Islamic torture centers. If you Google that, go to the images column, you'll see how they operate those prisons and cells. It's privately owned by clerics and it's cultural. It has gone on for centuries. And if you don't want to study the Quran, this is the torture you go through, especially just studying the Quran. But my case is peculiar because not just studying the Quran, you refuse to practice religion or you say you are not a Muslim. So they could have done that, but they decided to go another way by subjecting me to psychiatric evaluation. Firstly, I refused that because I thought it's an insult to my intelligence.
Yes.
But when the pressure mounted and they said they would take me to the Middle East for such psychiatric evaluation, I felt at least I'm safer in Nigeria for that. So I decided to go with it. But I told them I have to go with family. Let them accompany me to the doctor, let him assess me. Because since I'm crazy, I wouldn't know why I'm crazy, but they would know since they're living with me. So I said, you can come with me and you mention my symptoms, then the doctor could assess. It was November 2013. We went to this doctor and he said, well, uh, just by the mere look at you, you look smart, you don't look crazy. How is it that they are convinced you're crazy? I said, well, they could tell you if I'm crazy or not. So family started listing my crazy ideology and my symptoms, which is not praying, not fasting, saying there is no God, saying there was no Adam and Eve, saying that we have only one lifetime. Although it's unheard of, but the doctor really felt comfortable listening to that. And he said, well, this is not mental illness. This is just spiritual lack. So what he needs is just maybe some preaching and some prayers, to which they told him, well, he knows the religion better than most of us. And he is the most enthusiastic of all the people in the family about how to get people win converts for Islam. And he told them, then there's nothing we can do. There's no medication for atheism. And he said, just play safe and be safe by yourself. That's all. And that's all. We went home. But 6 months later, my father was very disappointed with that first diagnosis. So he made an arrangement with another doctor. And I ended up just, well, they first invited me honorably to another assessment, which I was very confident I was call through. But this time I didn't know that there were pre-arranged whatever uh, maybe symptoms that they have stated to him. So they came that I'm really delusional, I'm crazy. They added some sprinkles of lies that I'm dangerous to the family, especially that, which was very insulting. I was living with them and they called me dangerous to the family, and that he is a monster. My father called me a monster because I have a dangerous mindset and a dangerous ideology, and no one feels safe with me. Then they added that uh, I was saying I'm the president of the country. That I'm so delusional that I'm calling myself the president. And I think they sprinkled a few other lies here and there. And they even said the activism I was on is actually mental illness because I was working, because I was writing letters to governors and to the presidents that these 8 million Almajiri children that are roaming the streets need to be rehabilitated into the system. So they said it's an obsession of madness because I was really disconnected with the reality. To
Mm,
which my brother, who flew in from Saudi Arabia, where he has been for a decade, also said that I'm so delusional that I'm saying there was no Adam, there was no Eve. And then the doctor just started scribbling down notes after assessment. Also, again, my father said if I said Muhammad, I don't say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is peace be upon him.
mm,
Another symptom of craze. Uh, well, you could call it just an insult. It was an insult to rationality, an insult to freedom. But they managed to convince the doctor, and immediately he scribbled down medications. And I laughed at him. I laughed at all of them. And he said, "My dear, everyone needs a God. Even in Japan, they have a God."
mm.
And he's a consultant, very the most senior psychiatric doctor, most in that part of the world. And I felt dejected, and I realized that it's a setup. So I said, I don't have to take it if I don't want to, and I stood to leave. And then he actually added, because if I'm not taking medication at home, then he continued with the hospitalization. Now it's an admission. I have to be admitted and locked up. Then I knew what they were planning, so I went home. I walked straight home and I called a friend. I said, "Come pick me up, please. I can't live with this family. They have gone to the extreme, the most extreme I could handle." I was handling the not no stipend thing, no master's thing, no talking to you thing, and all those sanctions, and maybe just the frowny faces. I could handle it, but I can't handle the insult. But before my friend came, my father has already mobilized his brothers, which are my uncles and my senior brother, and they took their gadgets, which is the injections and the medications, home. And so they called me for a meeting in the night, family meeting, and they asked me to sit down and be addressed. I thought it was something casual. So they sat me down and they said, "You have been diagnosed to be a psychiatric patient, so you have to take medications." I said, "I don't have to." So I stood to leave again. Now they just pounced and started the grabbing and the fighting and the struggle. And then it ensued for about an hour until I ended up uh, unconscious.
Oh,
Because when they put me down, my dad held me by the neck and we fell down, and there was all this struggle and fight. My brother came when I lost all maybe mobility. He came and he tapped my fingers and tied here and injected me. That was the last of it. And I told him before I went unconscious, I said, "I knew you'll do this to me because you are really crazy. And I will be back." Although I wasn't sure I will be back, but I told them that they should be ready for my retaliation. So I went unconscious and I woke up a few days later in a psychiatric hospital surrounded with it's a big ward with actual inmates and patients just suffering the mental illness. And there were forced medications, forced beatings. You'll be put down if you are struggling or refusing medications. I started resisting initially, but when I realized it's also another symptom because I noticed that the crazy people are resisting medication and they got beat up. I realized it's not even a method. So I kept on with the facade and I faked because the medicines were actually very traumatizing. They gave me this terrible agitation and I couldn't sit still. I couldn't think straight. I used to have a very straight thinking where my thinking is very straight, but with the medications now, the thinking became wobbly. You'd start thinking, then you lose track of that thinking. You pick it up again, then you lose it again. And I think it stuck. When I got out after 3 weeks, I realized because I hid some of those drugs that I wouldn't take before they caught up. There were anti-epileptics and mood stabilizers and antipsychotics. I think those were the drugs they were giving me. Uh, and also there were injections. So it went on like that until I sought help. A phone was knocked to me, and I wrote emails and I passed it around. And people sent lawyers, and activists pounced, and then the hospital was scared, and the government intervened. But they were really not sure what to do because it's an embarrassment. So they kept the facade that I was really ill, and then they instigated a nationwide strike. And through that, I was discharged from the hospital. So the whole patients were sent home, and I was lucky to be part of the uh, patients after 18 days. So that was it. Then I started. Then immediately, because
Um,
those times were the times of Boko Haram, the news have carried it. And you should remember also, when I got my phone, I opened my Facebook, and I realized my father has written the statement, the Islamic conversion Shahada, where if you state it, you have been converted to Islam. But because I've already declared on Facebook that I am no longer a Muslim, my father went and wrote, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, meaning I've converted to Islam. That was my last post, which was not really me, it's my father. So you see, it's not really about mental health, it's about conversion, about honor, about keeping you in the faith.
of course.
That's it. So when they made the announcement, Boko Haram picked it up, and the northern Nigerian populace, also the Muslim northern Nigerians, picked it up, and then immediately there was this agitation that Mubarak, someone called Mubarak, has left the religion, and he must be killed. We have to kill him. The Sharia has to arrest him and kill him, or we have to kill him. Then the leader of Boko Haram also joined the fray, and he said, yeah, this is part of the Western agenda to deconvert people. This is why Boko is haram. This is why education is haram. This is why we are cautioning you against. So for the first time, the victims of Boko Haram, the typical Nigerian, and the Boko Haram were in agreement that someone that
Wow.
has left his religion has to be killed. So initially, my troubles were not even about blasphemy or countering Islam or countering jihadism. The initial death sentence was because you left the religion.
Wow. It looks like the plot of a movie or a book, but it's a real story. I'm just
It's
speechless.
even crazier. It's even crazier. Just that I try to skip the most depressing things so that I can cope.
Yeah. And the story is far from be finished because in 2020 you were arrested on charges of blasphemy for some Facebook posts. Can you tell us what happened in the first days of your arrest and how it led
Okay.
to this arrest?
Yeah. So now 5 years have passed. After I left home, after the hospitalization, now I'm by myself, independent. I struggled. I got myself back up, and I created the community, and we were in our own world. We are coping, but also we are present online because my face is known. I felt no shame in sharing whatever views I had, and it went on for years. I was trying as much as I can to balance my private life with the public life and the advocacy for freedom of religion and freedom from religion, and the killings that are happening not just by Boko Haram but also by my people, which are normal Muslims, and then also all the hypocrisy, the political machinations and shenanigans. We're also critical of all those things, and I was practicing as a journalist with the biggest Nigeria's biggest online newspaper at the time. So I got to disseminate a lot of thought, a lot of philosophical thoughts, both in English and in Hausa, which is the local language. And my people had had enough of it, but they were wondering, why won't the government just take action? Then COVID-19 came and everyone was locked up. So most of those energies that they were dissipating and displeasure, now they had time. They could muster resources because everyone is online and they had time. So they mounted the biggest pressure on the government that I have been a nuisance and I've been blaspheming. I have been calling for this right, calling for that right, and writing rubbish. And it makes them feel bad. So I have to be killed. So the government decided to intervene and take me. This was in the middle of COVID 19. And I'm not a Muslim, so the Sharia police cannot really take me. But in collaboration with the Sharia police, police, they communicated with the Muslim force, with the Muslim community within the federal force, and it's just a cultural arrangement. And so I was taken. I was taken, but yeah, as I told you, the northern part of Nigeria is dangerous for even Muslims, talk less of humanist or an atheist or an apostate or someone accused of blasphemy, or especially someone accused of insulting the prophet. But the federal government, if they took you for these kind of things, you are supposed to be taken away from that region, even if for your safety. They could take you to the south or to somewhere that is undisclosed, so that they could assess what to do, or
Mm.
maybe even if it's a trial, it could happen. But this federal force now decided to smuggle me. There was a presidential directive where, because of the COVID-19 restrictions, there will not be travel, there will not be activities. The whole country was locked down. But this is the only exception. Now I have to be transported from this region that I chose to live to a region that is almost 100% Muslim, where they had the upper hand, where they could do whatever they can. Even if they want to kill you, this is where they could kill you. So I was smuggled into Kano State, my home state, and I was kept at the police headquarters for months with the friendly plea
Mm.
to convert to Islam. And I told them, this is a federal system. You can't do that to me. In fact, you don't have jurisdiction to bring me here to say that I have to
Mm.
face trial or I convert to Islam. And I refused that. And for weeks, with the proselytizing, with the cajoling, with the bribe offers, and this and that, I resisted. And that's the end of it. When they realized he's too, like most times, culturally, if you make the cultural connections, the emotional, pleas, and people would say, okay, yeah. So, and also they told me, if you to go to that trial, you'll never make it out alive because people will kill you there.
Mm.
I asked, well, why then subject me to a trial if you knew this is the consequence? They said, well, you are not a Muslim. You are embarrassing us. You are exposing Islam to ridicule. Uh, but you are our brother. You are our son. You just convert, become the nice person. You look nice. You look okay. You don't look like trouble. But why would you do this? Why would you risk your life? Why would you do this? So it happened after the weeks of these things, and the last sentence was that, "Are you ready to convert?" with a whole file case assembled, and I said I cannot convert to Islam. Then the man just sat down and scribbled his signature, meaning it's now documented official, and he said off to the jail where there are
Oh.
2,000 Muslims, and you could be stabbed there in the jail. You could be killed just for leaving Islam, not to talk of blasphemy against Islam or blasphemy against the Prophet. But they knew this and they made these arrangements and they took me there. Only now do they get to call because you survived it to say, I'm sorry, really, I didn't want to do that. They call me still. But they knew what they did. They never thought you'd make it out alive. But when you did, they don't want the embarrassment. They don't want the repercussions. Maybe you're too powerful now, or you have big government's connection, and maybe you could do something against it, or maybe you are maybe criminal and you could arrange for assassinations. So they have to call and plead that we are sorry, we knew what we did is wrong, but we are sorry, we are your brothers. But I haven't taken anyone to court. Maybe a decade ago, when I was taken to a psychiatric hospital, because it's futile, because
Mm.
that's not my target. Also, I haven't taken anyone yet to court regarding what they arranged to do, which is clear case of murder. They wanted to get me killed, and
Mm.
without the online activism, I could even have been killed by them. They would have killed me and then kept quiet about it because you could get vanished. The only luck I have is that I'm high profile and I'm public and I'm online here with a face, so you can't just vanish me. So they
Yeah.
made that arrangement where circumstantially you could get killed, and then they will just have to do the documentation that he's dead because he risked his life.
Mm. So you seriously risked your life. You feared you might not come out alive from prison. But in those moments, did you wonder whether you could have done things differently or whether it had truly been worth starting that battle?
Oh, I have never had regret. I think the only regret I would feel is that maybe I am not supposed to maybe be in Nigeria, because if I knew that it would lead to this, I knew I would come out and do these things, but outside in safety. So what I did in 2013 was sit down my mom and tell her about these things. This is what I believe, but I don't want you to feel that you failed. You have not failed. I'm a good person. I want to be a better person. But if I leave Nigeria for that, my master's degree, know that I am not a Muslim and I'll be public about it, especially about Boko Haram, about this and that. So I knew I would do that, but I didn't plan for it to start while I was in danger or while I was in most vulnerable state. So by telling my mom and then telling my dad and the action he took and whatever happened subsequently, I think if I were to maybe look back, I'll say maybe I should have just kept it quiet until I really traveled out, which could have been the safest thing to do. Then I would be vocal and I would do these things. But it took a decade. And you see, I could have ended up dead, not just once, twice, thrice, but almost, I think I escaped death threats and death attempts, maybe every other month, because it's always active, someone looking for you, receiving messages, I want to kill you, someone with a face, someone in the military, someone in the police. This is not just typical individuals. Sometimes it's Boko Haram, sometimes it's ISIS, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's online. So I've already, the risks were so many that people even within the community thought I was crazy to have risked so much. So there is no regret fighting what I'm fighting and trying to bring to fore these atrocities happening. There is no regret whatsoever. I'll do it all over again every time, and I'm still doing it. And I'm going back home someday. This is what I hope. When I have, there are some certain levels of protection. Nigeria is very multi-layered, where if you are vulnerable, you are vulnerable. But when you have resources, the connection or the maybe government backing, you could live freely. If I had maybe millions of naira or maybe a few thousand euros or dollars, I wouldn't be so vulnerable, because even as they're trying to do all these things, is because your family gave you out. My family have to give the nod that I could be taken or I could be killed. Otherwise, you have the tribal protection, you have the family protection, you have also your own resources protection. If I could just maybe offer a few million, the police wouldn't care about you. They look for money. Really, they don't care about religion. They're just looking for a way to survive. And so there are times I would feel maybe if I'm strong enough, if I can be man enough, because I'm just a kid in Nigeria. In my 20s, you starting in your 20s and your 30s, you're just a kid. But I turned 40 while in jail. And so you're now a man, especially a family man. So you have another level of prestige added to you. So if you are now a technocrat or an intellectual, someone that has the international recognition and backing, and also you can afford a few things here and there, I think I'll be okay, even living in Nigeria. And this is why, even with these things, I hope I can just cope with the new system. But in the end, I'll go back home to see how I can change it from within.
And your trial was very long and hard. What were the most difficult moments, and which people and organizations supported you during that time?
As you're taken to jail, you don't really know who is taking you, or who knows. I could only maybe keep a few contacts with Dr. Leo Igwe. So these are the people that reached out. But beyond that, I had no contact with the outside world for almost a year. So I didn't know there were people really
Wow.
rallying around for support online and this and that. Just as it happened when I was locked up in a psychiatric hospital. I had no idea what happened when I was locked up. I was not in communication. So now also, I only hoped that people are doing something, but I only knew maybe a few individuals. I didn't know it was an international outcry. So it's just now that I realize, oh yeah, so I had this lovely community, but I also know that Humanist International is doing something. I didn't know the capacity of what they did or the depth. If you are in a well or drowning under an ocean, all you want is just a gasp of air. You don't
Yeah.
really know who is out there. You're just trying to keep, maybe pull whatever you can to also rear your head out. So this is the experience. I didn't know much, but I got to realize I had an enormous international backing and support, even maybe 10 times more than I had a decade earlier. Uh, and this is, I think, the processes they started is what landed me here in this community where I am spending 6 months on this relocation program.
So, what is the situation today in Nigeria for those who do not believe, for critics of religion, or for religious minorities? You have also worked to raise awareness about the violence against Christian communities in the north of the country. Who are the groups or forces fueling this violence today? You mentioned Boko Haram, but are there others out there?
Well, to start with your last question, there is Boko Haram, there is Al Qaeda, there is ISIS, there is Ansarul Muslimin fi Bilad Sudan. There is, you have, I think, dozens of organizations that are really out to kill. But then also you have the culture, which is just the typical Muslim culture, where a blasphemy in Paris would end up with killings in Nigeria just because they have read in the news or they have heard in the news that someone has blasphemed in Pakistan or in London or in Paris. They would just find people to kill, most especially Christians. It has happened since when I was growing up. It doesn't even have to be blasphemy. For example, if there were killings in southern Nigeria and it's perceived to be against the Muslim community there or a tribe there, all they would do is just take arms and go. So it's a political thing we already had. It's also cultural. I could say Boko Haram is our culture. It has ever been our culture. The ISIS that you fear or you hear and they commit atrocities and you think is too big to handle, we've already known it for the centuries. Really, my people celebrate jihad, whatever kind of jihad you could imagine. My people love it. The only time that you see my people crying about all these things is when the jihadists are killing Muslims. For example, if they attack mosques or markets or maybe declare Muslims as infidels, that's when you hear them crying for assist. But if there was September 11, they celebrate it. If there was Hamas attack, they would celebrate it. If there is an Iranian attack or maybe just any jihad, any attack, bomb in Madrid, suicide bombing in Iraq, they will just celebrate it. American forces killed, yeah, it's good. So this is the culture. Boko Haram is our culture. All these abductions and slavery and killings, it has been our culture for centuries, for millennia almost. When we converted to Islam 800, 9, maybe 1,000 years ago, we already took to ourselves that we have to enslave others and expand the region. So even before the 1804 jihad, which happened just recently, we have had these slave raids on traditional communities. They were not Christian then because the British had not come. So these are people that are unclad with dressing. They are just maybe Africans in the bush. And these are people we always abducted and sold as slaves and this and that. So there were slave raids. And this is how we expanded the empire all through the Sahel region. That's why if today Boko Haram is abducting to kill or to sell, it's not really new. The world would be shocked, but it's our culture. We have never really rejected it as a culture. We never rejected child marriage as a culture. The federal government is there, the constitution is there. It's illegal to have sex with a minor, it's illegal to rape, it's illegal to sell slaves, it's illegal for this and that. It's illegal to maybe abuse your children, especially with this Almajiri roaming children in the streets. When I started, it was 8 million. When I came out of jail, it's 14 million, 12 to 14
Oh.
million from the figures. So when this bill came for the child rights to protect the child from child marriages, from this abuse of Almajiri system, the people rejected it because we have the majority numbers in the parliament. So we rejected it and we celebrated it. They celebrate when they defeat Western imperialist agenda. They would celebrate it if maybe they defeated a universal education bill. They would celebrate whatever you could imagine it. So these are the kind of, this is the system we have. So it's already uh, if you see an indigenous jihadi movement now, is because we encouraged it, we nurtured it, and we allowed it to happen. But we hoped it would kill the country, maybe because we don't want really Nigeria to exist. What we want is a caliphate. But also, we don't want a caliphate just in that former region that the British conquered. Now we want the whole of the country as a caliphate because there are resources, oil resources in the south. We don't care who lives there. We just want those resources, but they can be subjected as second class citizens, maybe just Christians waiting for us to dole out whatever we decide. This is the Nigerian problem. Nigeria could have been the best country in Africa. It's, in fact, it's the biggest economy in Africa, but it could have been at par, maybe in the G20 level. But because of these things that my people keep dragging the culture backwards, keep dragging us down, then we have this coping mechanism where we have to be the leaders of the country. We have to rule the country, and then everyone is at our mercy. Now it's democracy. If it's in the military times, we are the military. We are the ones in the senior echelon. So we are the ones that take the coups. We are the ones that lead the country for 4 decades after the British left. We are the ones that wage the civil war. So we are the ones that dictate who belongs to Nigeria and how the country is governed. We are the ones that dictate the constitution and what we recognize. Also, still, if you go back to the democracy, which is 2.5 decades ago, we're still the ones with the numbers. We're still the ones that dictate the direction of the country. So nothing moves, nothing. We have frozen the system until it benefits us. So there is this corruption, and then there is this political lackadaisical, what I think the word is lackadaisical aspect of you don't really want the system to ever change. There is no real secularism. There is no cultural evolvement, maybe the dynamism. There is no economic progress, and we can't really allow anything to work. And there is no referendum. So we know what Boko Haram is, we know what terrorism is, and this is what happens when you allow this system to go on. So, as I told you, even before they were Christian, they were being killed as just the fauna of the forest. They are just not human. Our people had killed them, taken them as slaves, and most of the Almajiri children used to be coming from this system of killings. So you have your own children, maybe two, three, or five, because you have four wives, but then also you have taken five slaves from the market, which were originally from these tribes, and you have so many children you can't cut off. Or what you do is just send them out, let the society feed them. All they need to do is to carry a bowl of food and call themselves students of the Quran, and people feed them. This is how you cannot cope. The demography is about the children are too many per woman, 7 per woman, and sometimes the man is the maybe head of the family, but he is no longer a farmer. He's living in the city or in the village where he cannot feed everyone. And he has already reproduced 30, 40 children. All he could do is send them out in the vulnerable years of 6 and 7. Those are the male children. The females will also get married in maybe 8 to 11 years old, or maybe at most now is 13, 14, if they're not educated. So this is
Oh,
what is already the system. So the killings are there, but now that the terrorists have killed for decades and they have already expanded the target group, either they have moved away or they have shifted further down southwards, or maybe we have outbirthed them or converted whomever feels the pressure. Sometimes assimilation also, because they tend to convert just to belong and feel safe, especially for the economic isolation. So what remains is that now the terrorists and the culture has no one else to kill. So now it kills them, whatever remains of them, and it kills those host communities, which is us. So when there is a cry of genocide, now you'd hear that the Nigerian government would say there is no genocide, there is no genocide, because everyone is getting killed. But it's because there was a genocide and it has been successful, and now it's general. So now they're killing Muslims, they're killing Christians, they're killing politicians, they're killing everyone. So now people will just say, no, it's a general killing thing. without really paying attention to the decades old and the centuries old killings that have happened. You could imagine, for example, Egypt used to be maybe Christian, now is all Muslim, such as
Mm,
Turkey, such as Tunisia, Morocco. So it's the encroachment. I could
mm,
even recall in my teenage years and in the early 90s when I was growing up, we used to have Christians around, and now there are no Christians around because maybe the attacks have pushed them, especially with the Sharia agitation. When the democracy came back and the military handed over, then the agitation started. Let's bring back the caliphate. They call the Sharia, recall the jihad, recall whatever. And this is what has resulted in the biggest killing fields in northern Nigeria. Most times there was no internet, so it wasn't on the record and it's
mm,
just buried. So we have these killings, and we know who is responsible for these killings. They would tell you that Gaddafi just let out his weapons and they spread through the Sahara, and this is how we get small weapons. But we used to kill even with machetes. We used to kill with the knife. We used to kill with whatever. We used to use bow and arrows. So the mentality is there, the jihad mentality is there, the killings would happen and will keep happening. Now just you could go just on Google northern Nigeria security situation and you see videos of bandits of any sort of maybe outlaws, terrorists, jihadists, armed robbers, slave raiders, all those things, traffickers, and it's all there. And I fear that in a few decades the region will maybe become even worse than Somalia. The only thing why the world cannot pay attention to these things is because one, we're African, two, we are sub-Saharan, and so the attention of the media is not there. Also, we don't have anything to offer the world, so there is no risk to those resources coming out. The oil is in the ocean offshore and maybe in the southern states where it's relatively safe to extract, but also is because we don't really have the capacity, the brain capacity to attack in the West. So we can't fly drones, we can't fly planes to suicide bombings. So the world cannot really assess the threat. Who are those being killed daily? Is our people, maybe the Christian community, the Muslim community. So it's just like a Rwanda situation. Go and handle your thing yourselves. When it becomes the big atrocity, maybe a one-time 100 million killings, then now the world will come with the Geneva Convention, with the UNICEF, with whatever. Then they would wonder how come it happened like this? Because when we were trying to bring it out, you ignored it. You didn't bother. All the factors, all the statistical data, you would have the indices for maybe a failed state or a civil war ensuing, or maybe uh, just anarchy, breakdown of law and order. We all have it now, and it would continue like that. But we don't know when it would be. Maybe it will be Somalia level, maybe it will be Rwanda level, maybe Congo
yeah.
level. But I know it's an explosive that is bound to explode and the world will see. Most times, if I write my essays and try to call attention, I would tell them you can't feed 100 million refugees. 100 million. We are 230, 40 million people in Nigeria. The North has about 150 million, the rest have about 80 to 100 million. What I'm
Mm,
trying to bring to attention is that if it breaks down, you will have a whole 100 million at most, maybe people that are in dire need of aid. So you will
mm,
have the Ethiopia level of famine. You would also have maybe this Rwanda level of killings. You may have the Somalia level of lawlessness. These are factors that will happen. It's a mathematical certainty, just that we don't know
It's a
how.
matter of
And
time.
it's a matter of time, and the government is, I think, only trying to keep up with whatever they contain this situation, contain that situation, make political statements about this situation, expend resources here and there just to keep things in order. But I know it will happen. It may not be now, but my hope is that the world would listen to some of us with the little voices we have here and there, that there would be that time, but you could mitigate it here. You could imagine the logic, spending, for example, $2 billion on security every year, maybe 1 billion from the Nigerian resources, another 1 billion from the French and the American and the United Nations resources, just to combat poverty, combat terrorism, combat this, combat that. But if you could invest that money in the symptoms and in these kind of maybe solutions we are proffering, such as maybe integrating these kids back to school or in their parents' custody, not in the clerical custody where they could be abused, they are abused, or maybe they are recruited into terrorism, then maybe you will have a chance to save the next 10 years or 20 years. But if you don't do that now, you're just wasting whatever. You will just become a figure, maybe a historical figure where you Google it and read the catastrophe that happened at so so time, and it will become an international sensation with cameramen and this and that. We don't want that
Mm.
situation.
Wow. So, Mubarak, now you live in a protected location somewhere in Europe. You are a free man, but the price you paid for that freedom has been immense. It's easy to call Mubarak a hero, and I think he truly is. Yet, the very fact that heroism is required simply to have one's right not to believe recognized shows that we as a global society have a profound problem with freedom. His story reminds us the freedom of thought is a fragile conquest, a right that must be defended every single day, everywhere in the world. Mubarak, after everything you have lived through hospitalization, the prison, the exile, the solitude, I think, who are you today?
Simply put, I'm a humanist. I call myself a humanist where I get to at least first of all practice my own kind of world conscience, where I get to be by myself and assess myself how I can improve the world or myself, or how I can do good things for the world, especially for the people without a voice. Which is typically the place I come from. The victims have no voice. The victims have no one to speak about them. The victims have really, most of them are already dead. So this is who I am. So I want to be the voice for those that don't have the voice. I've always thought I would die in my 20s. I haven't. In my 30s, I haven't. In my 40s, I haven't. I hope I live long enough to see the actual change, because to me, for myself, I feel I have not done enough. All I have done is just write and maybe communicate and do these kind of things. But it's not enough. As long as the policy has not shifted and we have not changed the trajectory, then it's not enough. The world is moving on, and we haven't really caught up with it. We have the good potential. And also, personally, I hope I will be able to live freely in my own country, in my own community, without harassment, where I can be able to contribute meaningfully to the communities and to the country, be it politically, socially, or just as a private individual. When I return in a few years, I hope to be actively involved in politics, because I've realized that we're at the mercy of dumb people that can't really do anything for the country except loot, and they don't have an idea of how to solve social problems. I'm an engineer. I have a master's degree in international affairs and diplomacy, but also I'm a rational, conscientious person that hopes to see a better world. But we are already there with a lot of people in all parts of the world. So I could say maybe I'm only representing my part of the world. There are others, but they don't have the maybe the profile or the visibility as I am. But I hope to bring these kind of like minds, so we could create something worth the while.
Thank you so, so, so much for being with us today, Mubarak. And thank you, everyone, and see you next time.